All right, hopefully this has started everywhere. I've noticed more and more of a lag every time I do the show. So it should be going at some point.
Kind of lag, like jet lag or something?
Yeah, the stream. Whatever happens, it's like the stream. It takes longer and longer and longer for it to actually start up on the alternate platforms, Locals and Rumble, and even X. But
X.
Hopefully soon.
Great punk band out of LA from the
currently Elon's punk band via social media.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he's been blocking a lot of weird people lately. I don't know what the Musk system is of blocking.
Oh, you mean like Matt Taibbi? You are dead to me.
Well, also Villanueva, who is the sheriff from LA, who's running against Han here for board supervisor. He blocked him for reasons that nobody knows. This righteous dude who would probably save the city of LA during the riots. I don't know what's going on with his system of blocking. Anyway, we'll get into it. But
yeah, no, he can definitely be capricious for sure.
Yeah,
he is thrilled though right now about what went down with Gemini, which is Google's image generator.
Oh my God, look at that! It's Black George Washington Carver.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap! Is that the AI George Washington or something?
Yeah, it literally was.
Are they all black? I mean, everybody in AI is black.
They were having problems. They've literally shut it down because it was spitting out like everybody black, everybody woke, and it turns out that the guy, I know you'll be shocked to hear this, but the guy has spoken in the past saying white privilege is effing real. His old tweets are coming out, so thumb is on the scale there, buddy.
He's the programmer. He's the
of course.
Whoever the programmer is, it's going to be their politics. So
yeah, this twit, yeah. This
guy
right here,
that douche, that mega douche, is Mr. AI, I guess.
And that's one of the issues with AI is, remember, it is trained by programmers. So whatever, garbage in, garbage out. However, Babylon Bee did come up with the perfect headline for it.
Let's see. What do they have?
Well, they finally were able to get a portrait of a white man. They asked Gemini to draw Clarence Thomas.
That's funny.
Sometimes Babylon Bee does it.
That's funny. I mean, that really is funny.
Yeah, it is. Anyway,
I mean, they went after Clarence Thomas this week to resign. I don't know what the beef is with Clarence Thomas other than to keep the pressure on the Supreme Court 24/7. What is he going to do? Just buckle because somebody said he should resign?
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going after his wife because she's, very conservative. So just going after him left and right, left and right, left and right.
It's not going to do anything.
No, I do foresee, though, once Trump gets in, that would be a good time for him to retire.
And not bring in new blood. You're talking about
right. Yeah, you don't want to have the Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
No, I would try to indict the other the liberal ones. I would just indict them and just see what happens. I would just indict them and just throw the thing against the wall and have them indicted, dragged out of there. And you got to make some noise, Hunley, not you personally. I mean, you can't just constantly be on defense. The problem with the right, in my opinion, is they're constantly on defense. They're constantly reacting. They're reactionary. They never on the offensive. There's no more Lee Atwaters. There's no more Dick Cheneys. There's no more Dr. Evil. What happened to this party? I mean, they were super aggressive back in the 90s, right? Yeah, they were super proactive. 80s, they were super in the 80s, and they were super proactive. And all of a sudden, this situation where these country club Republicans start, with their white shoes and starting to get bought off and whatever these guys are. Who is this guy, Ken Buck, I was asking you about? Maybe it's from Tennessee. Guy he ends up on CNN, throwing this Smirnoff guy under the bus and throwing, I forget the guy's name, the congressman who's running the investigation into Biden. He's been on TV a lot, a Southern guy, righteous dude, who said he was deceived by not Massey, it's something with an M. I was thinking of Massey, but it's not Massey. It's the other guy, Moore, or I forget the guy's name. But anyway, so he's come on and said he's been deceived twice by the FBI in the Smirnoff case. and he's not going to use the FBI any longer. No, what's his name? Okay, Ken Buck is a schmuck. That's funny. But I don't know where he's from, but that was apropos.
Yeah, I had to.
Very good. But anyway, so the FBI is actively the situation with Smirnov, which is breaking so quickly. Not all the facts are in, so I was studying up on it last night. Apparently, what they did was they baited the House Intel Committee with Smirnov, who they paid tens of millions of dollars to over the past 15 years. By the way, this is a veteran guy the FBI has used for many things. Over 15 years, they vouched for him completely. The head of the FBI gave him to the Intel Committee as one of the whistleblowers in the Biden case, saying that he had evidence that Biden and his son took $5 million apiece back in 2016, 2017. And they gave him this guy and then arrested him for lying, and then had the Democrats, Raskin and everyone, waiting in the weeds to come out and say the impeachment's now over because they have used this deep state Putin-loving source out of Russian intelligence. The entire thing was a setup ready to go from day one from the head of the FBI, giving up this guy as a source for the investigation. This is a new take on this thing that nobody has heard yet that I'm giving you right now, because it's become quite obvious what they did with Smirnov. So the judge in Nevada saw through this and let him go. Was arrested, but he put him out on bail. Mm-hmm. They realized he was going straight to the conservative media to give his case. He had been on Fox many times before in the past, and they cut him off at the pass with a California federal judge who had him rearrested, saying the election was too important. I swear to God, you could look this up. He is going to put out disinformation from Russian intelligence, and he was arrested and now in manacles in jail. In other words, this is a second arrest in 3 days for the same guy who has been the most revered intelligence source for the FBI for 15 years by their own admission, and has been paid tens of millions of dollars, Eric, as a snitch, as you said last week, for the FBI, and given to the Intel Committee, who said we didn't need him. We got plenty of other evidence against the Bidens. But now the Democrats are organized with the FBI in doing this, is the point of why I'm discussing this. This was an op that they had waiting in the wings to go after the Intel Committee that's the investigation into Biden's impeachment.
No, I have no doubt.
That being said, James Biden stepped on his own dick apparently multiple times, contradicting himself when confronted under oath in a deposition behind closed doors yesterday in the impeachment of his brother. So James Biden could be cited for either perjury or contempt. He fell into a perjury trap beautifully the past 2 days. And now an obscure guy named Hunter Biden will be under oath in a deposition next week behind closed doors that will be over 100 hours long. And he will perjure himself. This coke-addicted, mind-muddled mutt will then also be subject to perjury, and probably, they're believing, will not appear in the public hearing version of his own testimony, which is a tradition where you testify behind closed doors, and then you have a public hearing where both sides get to grill you for 5 minutes apiece. That show trial thing.
You don't think he's just going to plead the fifth the whole way?
Not from what I hear. Not from what I mean, in the deposition behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. I mean, he could. I mean, but that's 100 hours of the fifth. But they're going to present him like they do. I'm saying his uncle didn't. His uncle did not. Right. So I'm presuming this arrogant cunt is not going to do it either. That he's going to go in there as arrogantly as he showed up the first time, thinking that he's got this trump card of his father, who has promised in no uncertain terms to pardon him, which is sketchy at best because his father could croak any day now and then leave him dangling in the breeze to the subjective whims of Queen Harris. So yeah.
By the way, we are 9 minutes, 41 seconds in. So everyone who picked under 30 is the winner in the poll.
Tell them what they've won, Bob. Holy crap. Holy, what is
my
this?
God. We're not literally under 10 minutes in. Come on.
We didn't use any of their buzzwords. We didn't do anything. We are just
Oh
shadow
God.
tortured by the Indians who run Google. So
I'm telling you, I don't know. Well, you know what? But there's some like-minded people who probably hang out with the Google folks. I guess you met one of them recently.
who? Okay, now let me back this up. Okay, before you do that, this guy, I got to tell you this guy. I didn't know anything about this guy. About a number of months ago, I read, I'm next door to Burbank. Jim DiEugenio lives in Burbank. I live in Los Feliz. It's in between is Glendale, which is a Trump stronghold filled with Armenians who are anti-communist, virulent anti-communist. Beverly Hills is a red city, also filled with Iranians, Jews who fled Iran in the 70s. So there are these pockets. And in between Los Feliz and Glendale, the next town over from Glendale is Burbank. So I was reading in the paper about this guy who's the mayor of Burbank, this young guy who's an avowed Marxist. And I'm going like, how is this possible that an avowed Marxist is the mayor of Burbank? This is months ago. Then I read that he's involved in drag queen storybook bingo hour in Burbank, where they spanked him on the ass as part of the operation. I don't know if you have any video of this, but
yes, of course.
Okay, became a national news story. Okay, go ahead, Hunley. Go ahead.
Actually, I got to stop there because I'll get nailed on the music.
You'll get nailed on that. God forbid. We're going to go to social
there we
media.
Go. So we'll just there. We'll
Okay,
just
so this is Constantine. This is Constantine Anthony, endorsed, obviously being spanked here by a 6'5" tranny drag queen, and he is an avowed Marxist. There he is being spanked again. Just absolutely great as the mayor of Burbank. So I started following him. I'm going, because I was looking like, how is this humanly possible that a guy with a it's kind of a ceremonial job in a lot of ways, being the mayor of Burbank.
1 year.
Why? What's that?
It's like 1 year.
Yeah, it's like 1 or 2 years, and then you're out. It's whatever. But he was also on the Burbank City Council, which is a little bit more
Still
influence. Is. I don't think he is any longer because he's running for. I think he got termed out of that too. But anyway, make a long story short, he is involved endorsed by the Democrat Socialists of America. He's running for county supervisor, which is Katherine Barger's seat. She's the only Republican and the only sane mind in Los Angeles County, the largest county in America. The 5 county supervisors, 4 of them are complete leftists, and 1 is Katherine Barger. This guy is running for her seat on the county board of supervisors. It's a huge job with a huge budget and huge amounts of power, right? So I said to myself, let me check this guy out. And all of a sudden there's a knock on the door yesterday and it's him. And I'm going, wait. He goes, hi, I'm Constantine Anthony. I'm running for county supervisor. And I go, he says, I want your vote. And I said, I wouldn't vote for you in a million years. You're an avowed Marxist. Why would I vote for you? And we get into this debate in my hallway for 25 minutes yesterday, where he begins to explain, debating with me about Marxism and the homeless and drug addiction. It didn't go well for him. Let me say that. But he agreed to come on the show before the election, March 5th. So we're going to try to get him on. I mean, this guy is, he's like, I want to say like Gavin Newsom on steroids, younger, more aggressive than Gavin Newsom. This is where it comes from, folks. So to do more research on the guy, he's a failed actor. He was telling me about his acting career, that he's a SAG member for many years. He was a stand-in on about 10 shows, never acted a day in his life. Says that that's his entire career, was being an actor and a comic and all this other stuff. Absolutely nothing there. He was on 3 episodes, he told me, of Entourage, which I happen to be watching recently. I don't know why I stumbled back into Entourage. So last night we're looking for him in the background among the extras, me and my girlfriend, and we can't.
Maybe it's this one. Is it this one?
No. But he actually had a character's name named Chris. So we're watching these episodes from 2010, going, is there a Chris in this? And there was not, of course. And he said he's a union guy and he's this and that and all this other stuff. And it gets better. It gets better. He was, when he was running for mayor, the Republican candidate challenged him about his claim that he was on the spectrum and autistic. So he said, and he was embracing the disabled community as one of his virtues, Eric. And so the guy said, "Were you ever tested for autism?" And his wife at the time said, "How dare you question my husband? Where is he supposed to get $2,300 to pay a doctor to diagnose him with autism? His friends, when he was 20 years old, suggested he was autistic. Isn't that enough for you?" Okay. Okay. So now it gets weirder because his job, when he's not mayor, is that he's an Uber driver. Okay. So you've got, yes, he's in front of my house with this beat up. No, can't make this up. I go outside to get the mail, and he's outside getting in his Prius that he drives people around as an Uber driver when he's not the mayor of Burbank, bro. And
so he lives like a communist.
He lives exactly like a communist. The salary was $9,000, by the way, to be mayor, which is now over. And he wants the salary of a county supervisor, which I think is $280,000 somewhere. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But this is where it starts. This is how it starts. And anyway, Han, the one of the county supervisors, is running against Villanueva, who was our sheriff, who they went after as a Trump supporter. He got election stolen from him, and now he's running for a county board of supervisors seat. For some reason, he was blocked by Elon Musk yesterday. But getting back to Anthony, which is one of the great porn stage names, Constantine Anthony. I don't know what that even means. He endorsed Adam Schiff, of course, for the Senate. Adam Schiff is now in a 4-point spread race against Steve Garvey, formerly of the Dodgers, who we're supporting because Garvey was a great Dodger and a Republican and a businessman, and he's running as a non-politician against Adam Schiff, and there's a 3-point spread in the two of them right now for the Senate race. So it's an important.
So he might have a shot.
It's insane. It's insane. People are like freaking out here. They're absolutely freaking out. And Garvey's not MAGA. He's just a guy who's running as a Republican businessman. But nevertheless, Adam Schiff has a lot of baggage. So he gets endorsed, Adam Schiff, by Constantine Anthony. Turns out that as soon as October 7th happened, Adam Schiff came out and psycho-wise, for reasons that are obvious, he said that Israel has the right to defend themselves. Adam Schiff, being Jewish, not completely deranged, and supported the state of Israel. So Anthony took back this made national news, took back his endorsement and gave it to the black psycho candidate for Senate, Barbara Lee, who has called for a minimum wage in LA of $50 an hour, among other Marxist things that Barbara Lee has called for. Is a complete Jew-hating.
I love that. It's like, why 50? Why not 100?
That's what they said to her. The reporter said, "Why stop at 50?" and that was very funny.
Oh my God. It's just like, well, you're just making numbers up. You obviously have no responsibility. You have no clue how to run a business. Why are you even there?
Well, getting back to Mark Anthony, as I call him, or Constantine Anthony, whatever you want to say. This is the guy that knocked on my door yesterday. And to his credit, is physically going door to door with just his own skinny little flyer, which I had. Oh, no, here it is. This is what he gave me. His little flyer that was in his back pocket in his tight, skinny jeans, in Spanish on the back. And I'm a proud, progressive, grassroots, corporate-free Democrat. I am autistic, as you're well aware, and I've been homeless. He told me he was homeless, and we debated about the homeless crisis. And I said, I just spent the weekend in Burbank. There were no homeless. He goes, "Yeah, I did that." I go, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I got rid of them." I go, "Where'd you send them?" He said, "I gave them homes." I said, "Where?" He goes, "They're scattered around." I said, "Well, is that permanent housing?" He goes, "No, it's only for 3 years." I go, "Then what?" He says, "Then we'll figure something else out." Okay. So I said, "Were most of them drug addicts?" He goes, "No, only about 36%. I said, "Well, I've heard that it's close to 92%. And he says, "No, that's not true." I said, "How do you know?" He says, "We asked them." Okay. I said, no, dude, it was the greatest debate of all time. I was going to grab my camera, but I couldn't. I was in the hallway. I didn't know what to do. I was in the middle of it. And then I said, "Well, most of them are on meth." He goes, "No, it's fentanyl." I said, "Well, how long could you be a fentanyl addict? This doesn't seem like a future that you would have." Because it was the craziest. dude. But he had bullshit that didn't quit. He was so cocky and confident. That was the beauty of it. He was so confident in what he was saying, that I said, finally, I said, you're for defunding the police. He goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, how does this work? I said, how many people are in jail? It must be empty by now, right? I said, is it 30% full, 80% full? What's the deal? He says, it's 136% full. I go, the jail? He says, yeah. I said, so where do they put anyone? He says, they double them up in cells. So I said, does it become 200% full then? I mean, what's the deal? Then I said, okay. I said, what about Gascon, the DA who's running, the George Soros appointed? Yeah. I said, is there any daylight between you and him? He says, well, he's kind of a reactionary. I said, are you going to endorse him? He says, not yet. I said, well, why don't you endorse him? He's afraid because the guy's radioactive, right? So he says, if he wins, I'll work with him. I said, why don't you help him now? No, I said, why don't you help him now so he could win? I said, he's a fellow Marxist. It could be the two of you together in bed, having a great Marxist powwow. Anyway, I started calling him comrade and whatever, it was just so freaking crazy, Eric.
But it didn't phase him from what you said, which is amazing.
Amazing. The guy did not buckle 1 inch, no matter what, point I brought up. I said, what about cashless bail? I said, nobody could go to jail with cashless bail. They don't even get arrested. They're released. He goes, yeah, I know. I said, well, how are you going to stop crime? He says, well, we're going to work with the police. I go, but you got rid of the police. Anyway, it went around in circles for a while, but I hope he can come on.
Dude,
I begged him. I said, here's my cell number. You got text me. You got to come on the show. He goes, what show? I said, well, it's America's Untold Stories. And his eyes kind of lit up because he's an actor. And he's on, I said, show, right? I go, you got to come on the show. And he goes, oh yeah, the show. I got to come on the show. Ridiculous.
Oh my God. All right. Well, here's a story. I saw this. I sent it to you on the side. What in the hell? Gas station heroin? What
this is just one of these many products that you can get. It's kind of like the bath salts thing.
Is there a Kraken or something else?
No, I mean, eventually they're mixing it with something else. Yeah, sometimes like with the Sudafed thing, which is now under lock and key. Sudafed was used as an epinephrine base to make crystal meth. So they find different substances. It's not the entire substance is what I'm gathering. It's a part of a substance to make something else.
Okay. Is it like, I forget what they call it, but like there's a CBD where it's like one molecule off from THC.
Right. Well, the Chinese keep creating these headshot products where they are one molecule off. And also the legality is one molecule off. I mean, it took a long time for a lot of these products to be made illegal by different states. Of course, damage has to be done massively before it's brought to the attention of authorities. Eventually, this will too. I mean, they're cranking these things out of China mostly. But
wow.
Yeah. I don't know what this one is, but I mean, there are different products related to bath salts that are still on the market. And I told this guy yesterday at the door, he told me he was homeless years ago, but not an addict. He said he was just a homeless guy. I don't know what the status was of that. But he was able to rehabilitate himself or somehow got a home by marrying a script supervisor on one of these film. No, I swear to God, he married the script supervisor and then he had a kid with the script supervisor who's British, and then she divorced him. Now he's got some other screaming Mimi wife who attacked his opponent on the Republican side when he was running for
Maybe
mayor.
she could come on too.
Dude, I'd love to have them both on. We're going to have a round robin discussion with the Marxist. I mean, holy crap.
Oh my. Yeah. So, okay. Somebody pointed out Delta 8. That's what I was trying to think
What's
of.
Delta 8? The name of the thing?
It's THC one off.
Okay.
Like one molecule off.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of those over the years. But where do you want to go now? You want to talk about this mayor in Illinois if we're talking about mayors?
Yeah, we can. I was just going to do a quick shot here, checking in on our boy Sam Bankman-Fried.
Stop. No. I can't laugh about that. It's too sad, Eric. It really is. I really, it's too much. This guy should be in I don't even know where he should be, but he should not be in general population. Because we did this thing yesterday with Emerald. I did that Emerald TV thing with Emerald Johnson, like on Wednesday, and Richard Barnett was on from prison in Dallas. And the J6 prisoner who put his feet up on Pelosi's desk, the famous photo that went around the world. He was on the Emerald TV show with me, and I was so flummoxed by this thing. I was just so spun out from what they're doing to this guy inside the federal prison in Dallas that I was just sick for the rest of the day. This guy is fighting the good fight. I felt embarrassed and ashamed that I couldn't do more. Hats off to Emerald for putting him on. He's being tortured there by they have special rules just for the J6 people, cutting off their communication, cutting off their emails, cutting off their phone time, everything just separate for January 6th, completely separate, completely appealable, completely reversible. And I just pray and hope when Trump gets back in, the first thing he does is get these people out of these jails, because it's not that they're doing time. He's doing 4.5 years on a trespassing beef. Okay. But they're torturing.
It's a misdemeanor, for God's
sake.
sake.
Forget about the charges. I'm talking about just the treatment that they're giving them inside, separate from the regular prisoners. That alone should lead to massive lawsuits against the Board of Prisons, because they should be treated just like the others. They're not. They're not. Even though they were completely abused to get there legally, like you're pointing out, inside they're being abused nonstop for every single day of this guy's life. I mean, it's just sickening, absolutely sickening.
No, I agree. And we'll go ahead and pivot to the nation's mayor, Tiffany Henyard. Now, Nate has been doing yeoman's work with Tiffany, and he actually helped break her story. Nate, the lawyer, our friend.
Well, anyway, so the police chief is this guy, Lewis Lacey, who's her muscle in this town. It's all black. And she's here dressed like Nemo, who is Wesley Snipes, who used to be Robert Barnes's client, Nemo from New Jack City. This is okay. She dresses like Nemo, the gangster, on purpose to shake down the city council to get money. And of course, once she got the money, you know the rules. It's cruises, parties, and trips.
Dude, she gave $1 million away. I
Okay.
mean, she literally just said, on the budget here, it's $1 million. Let's
she
make
built
it rain.
a $2 million ice rink that only she can use for parties that she has. I mean, this chick it makes Fannie Willis look conservative. This is a constant theme now of these single post 50-ish black women who get to power. The black women in the city have now completely are completely upset that they voted for her. I mean, they interview in this article that was in Black Enterprise magazine. I was reading just a black magazine about business. The people who voted for her want her out. I mean, I mean, they want her out. They were duped. And I mean, here's a picture of her. This is who they think they voted for. She owned a hamburger stand in town, got in there, and of course went dictatorially insane.
Dude, she was locked up, arrested like 2 or 3 years before, just a few years back before she was elected even.
It's insane. And then what they do is they hook up with a guy who is the chief of police, and now they have a crime operation where they're shaking down black businessmen in the city itself. I mean, I can't see this.
And her inspector, don't forget about her inspector.
The inspector also.
Oh, well, no, the inspector is literally on one of those lists that we can't say out loud on YouTube. But yes, he is a predator. And
right.
That's her inspector. He served hard time, like 16 years for bad things.
And he's inspecting houses. Intentionally descended to the bottom of the barrel of picking these people. That's why I pointed out this Constantine Anthony thing. He is the bottom of the barrel here in terms of just having no background doing this. What somebody pointed out yesterday was Han, who is a board of supervisor. Her brother was the mayor. Her father was a supervisor. There's plenty of Kenneth Han parks around LA. Big power broker family. Han hired her daughter to be the chief of staff for $200,000, hired her son-in-law to work with him for $200,000. She makes close to $700,000. And there's no way that these people ever ran a business. So somebody pointed out that you get into these large operations in government and you've never signed a paycheck. You've never run a business. So of course things are going to go wrong. We had a woman jump off the top of an 18-story building here in downtown LA wearing the Department of Health jacket because she had been bullied at the Department of Health by Barbara Ferrer and her staff until she jumped to her death last week. And now an entire can of worms has been opened up in the Department of Health, who went after John Phillips on KABC radio. The Twitter files has Barbara Ferrer. She's the health director who is a phony doctor, claimed to be a medical doctor, merely has a PhD in urban planning, another Marxist. She invokes some of the strictest COVID rules in America, blah, blah, blah. The point of the matter is they run these massive bureaucracies without ever having run a business of a similar size. So, of course, you're going to have employment problems. Of course, you're going to have interstitial warfare inside of the place. No one has ever run anything this size, Eric. If you know what I'm saying.
And also they go, I mean, look at their degree.
Right.
Their degree is at a university taught by somebody else who has no job skills whatsoever,
right,
about the man, and the man sucks. Well, guess what? The man's got to make money. You know, corporations have to make money, and these are the people that they hate.
Right. What this guy was just talking about on the radio was simply running a corporation or a bureaucracy, a department, which is the same as like running a giant business, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got hundreds and hundreds of employees, but you've never even run a small business, let alone a bureaucracy of this size. And inside the fighting that's going on and the stealing and the hiring and the nepotism is all being covered up internally by the people who are in there because they're all feeding at the trough. And this is what these urban governments have become, is what this guy was explaining.
Right. And they don't have shareholders to answer to.
They have nothing to answer
a budget.
To.
They don't have a budget. You know, they supposedly have a budget, but come on, they'll just keep upping that every year. So why not? You know, and if they fail at their job, they need a bigger staff.
Barbara Ferrer is the highest paid executive in America. She makes $900,000 a year as the health commissioner in Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, dude, she is and deranged, totally deranged, power mad, another single woman, another crazed, power mad Evita Peron in an American democratic situation. I mean, it's got to stop. It's just got to stop.
Well, you know what? We've got a president that's praising Newsom and California and things that are going on there.
Yeah, he was just in town also. I mean, he went around with the mayor and he hooked up with Newsom, his buddy who's waiting in the wings. Apparently, even Joe Rogan must watch our show because now he's talking about Newsom coming in to replace Biden. All of a sudden, all week long, I'm hearing Newsom replacing Biden. It sounds like something that we might have mentioned a while back, Eric.
Maybe this is the echoes that are coming back around.
The echoes, and that's why they keep demonetizing us, because they don't want these echoes coming out until they say it's time. We apparently keep getting these stories way before they break on the mainstream media. But yeah, I mean, Newsom is waiting in the wings. I mean, I think if it continues to falter, as I predict, it'll be a couple of weeks before the convention that they'll make the switch. If not, if he continues to hang on and maybe move in the polls, they might not. But I think the way it's going, they have this guy in the bullpen for a reason. And I think people are starting to realize that. Even Bill Maher came out and said it. Newsom is the guy in waiting.
And Bill Maher is like, oh, I pray they do it, because he's like slobbering over him.
Yeah, no, because they look at Biden as a loser. That's why they're praying that he does it, because they want a relief pitcher, to come in from the pen. If your starting pitcher is out on the mound, I don't care if it's Tom Seaver, and he's starting to get hit around in the 6th or 7th and 8th, you got to get a guy up. And I could say that because it's opening day, spring training yesterday, and I just got to say something. You know, it's very exciting to be a Dodger because we got Ohtani and we got Yamamoto out of Japan and we got a bunch of guys. They went crazy. So I, who don't think we're going to win the World Series because we got a fucked up manager, affirmative action manager who can't manage in real time, Dave Roberts. But that's another story. So I put on the Padre game yesterday. It's the first game of the year, down in Camelback, your old neighborhood down there in Arizona. And they're playing the evil Padres. The Dodgers score like 8 runs in 5 minutes in the game. They had like 1 out. It was 8-0 before the game even started. And I said, okay, so I'm good. I just wanted to get that out. But here is, just so you know, this is from 1988. Just so you know, this is me at Shea Stadium in New York, 1988, celebrating on my own our defeating of the Mets. This goes way back. And it's, my grandfather taught me this game. And one of the beautiful things about the game is not the game itself. It's that spring training means another season of spring and time and life and reinvigoration. It's more than the game. It's about seasonal
family
growth,
time.
It's more than that. It's about rebirth. It's about another season. It's about another, year of life. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it.
Hope.
It's not the game. Hope. Everything. Hope springs eternal. It's not even about the team as much as it's about generational father to son, which is what this game is. It's a father to son game. And, that's why there's not a lot of blacks involved in baseball anymore, because they have no fathers, sadly enough. The Latinos, black Latinos have fathers who come out of Venezuela now, Central America, coming out of Mexico, of course, the Catholics. They all have fathers who taught them the game by hand. The reason that they don't have American blacks in this game anymore is that there is no father to teach them the game. It is a specific father to son teaching of this game. And once in a blue moon, you'll get a black player these days, but they'll usually have a 2-parent household, and you can take that to the bank. That being said, I think we need to find some incentives, tax-wise and financial-wise, to boost up the black families that are now at a 90% rate of being a single-parent household. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these black women doing these crazy things, like Fannie Willis and the woman up in New York, and this woman in Illinois. These are women without men who are trying to fend for themselves. And in Washington, there's a story. I don't know if you saw the story. They started a pilot program to give single black mothers money as a pilot program. So they gave, you could take it monthly, which is, there's a bunch of these pilot programs around the country. You could take it monthly, like $1,000 or $1,200 a month. Or in DC, which nobody knew, you could take a lump sum of $10,800. So this woman took the lump sum, left her kids behind, and immediately went on cruises, got her hair done, went shopping, bought the clothing, went crazy, and ran out of the money in literally 4 weeks. And so that was in the newspaper yesterday for this pilot program, how wonderful it worked, of just the mayor of DC saying this is going to reinvigorate low-income black single mothers' economic picture. And she literally said, F this. The woman said, F this, I want a party. And she spoke for a broad spectrum of people who are impoverished, who literally want to go on cruises, get their hair done, and party. But they have no, tools to do that other than the government giving them a debit card for $10,800. That being said, the mayor in New York is doing the same thing, Eric, by giving the illegal immigrants a debit card for $10,000 apiece. I mean, with no restrictions on it, no restrictions. $10,000 debit card now.
They love to do it. I mean, 'twas always thus, if you will. But we do at least have a sponsor.
Oh, that's nice. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, and it is really important, folks, to point out the sponsors. Moondo's has been an amazing sponsor for us for a while. These guys are veteran-owned coffee brewery. I guess a roastery is what they call it.
Roastery.
And one key thing about the roasting that I appreciate is when you order it, if you get it pre-ground or whatever, they actually roast them to order. So it's not sitting there on the shelf in a bag for 4 months. Oh, you getting it? And then sent out to you. They are putting out fresh coffee every single time.
What?
And they're always cool about new flavors. They have a new flavor now, and I don't know if I'm going to say it right. It's Yaga Chef. I'm not sure how I get Yaga Chef out of this, but Ethiopia Yaga Chef.
Whoa.
And that is an organic version. They are replacing it. And they also have Mexico Chiapas.
Whoa.
And what's super cool too is they're doing something different. And I got lucky enough to be on the pilot program, if you will. I was saying, you know what, you guys, because they have so many different flavors. I mean, literally a ton of Just this is the pure coffee, several of those, and then the flavored coffee, a bunch of those.
Hmm.
There's a lot of options. I was like, well, you know what? Leslie, my loving wife, doesn't really like coffee. Now she says she likes coffee, but what that means is it's got to have the most flavor possible, buried in sugar, buried in
Whoa.
cream, whatever. But she does like to experiment and try different flavors.
Hmm.
And I said, hey, you guys should offer like a coffee flight.
What's
how in
coffee light or coffee flight?
Coffee flight. Have you ever been to a pub where they have the little glasses of like beer that they offer in the pub? So you have the different flavors. There's IPA,
Boy,
this and
quit
that.
I quit long
Oh,
before
I know,
that.
but you might have been with somebody who got one. That's what I was saying.
Okay, all right.
And it's just a way. It's kind of like a sampler pack. I was like, well, you should have a coffee flight, and they are going to be doing that. So we've got the first sample.
What is it, like little hits of coffee?
Just instead of a full bag, it's like a quarter bag, and they'll probably do them in 4-packs. So we've got hazelnut, Vienna cinnamon, chocolate orange truffles. Now, I don't know what it is about women and orange coffee, but it's not my thing at all.
No.
And then we are in Hampton, Virginia, so Blackbeard's grog.
What does that mean? Is Blackbeard from Virginia?
Well, Blackbeard's head was hung on the point of Hampton after he was killed.
Wow,
The
that's
governor.
dark. That's dark.
It's our claim to fame. We have a festival here every year, but that's got a rum infusion flavor. We're really looking forward to trying these out. And they're actually going to be supplying coffee for a meetup in Youngstown.
What meetup? What are you talking about, a meetup all of a sudden?
We have a meetup coming up in Youngstown. And this is on the weekend of St. Patty's Day.
Woohoo! Party.
They're going to be supplying the coffee there so people can try the different flavors while they're there as well.
I got a DUI on St. Patrick's Day one time.
I know we covered it.
Oh, we did? Okay. Just reminded me, it's not going to happen this time, but I did get a DUI on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, yeah, it's been a minute since you've drank.
Right. No, but I mean, it was funny because we had some shots, just like complimentary shots in the morning at the Hunter Mountain Ski Resort where I worked. And then at night, they had roadblocks because it was St. Patty's Day. And the guy pulled me over, and there were just traces of alcohol from the morning. I mean, I didn't drink, and I didn't go to a bar. I was going home. And he kept making me blow into that breathalyzer at gunpoint. So eventually he got me on a DWAI, which is driving while ability impaired. And I mentioned that because Alan, it was a state trooper, Alan, who did this, who took me back to the trooper barracks in Tannersville and made me blow into an older machine until finally something registered. It was a step below a DWI. It was a DWAI. And I think it's covered in the episode. But it was on St. Patty's Day that this happened. So it's not going to happen in Youngstown. I guarantee you that. But it may happen to other people. And then Alan will be there possibly to help advise them on how to respond. But the guy, at one point, I kept saying, I was sitting in the car next to him in his state trooper car. And I kept having me on the passenger seat. And he kept having me blow into this device in the car. And I said, how long do I have to keep blowing into this thing? And he put his hand on his gun. And he said, until I tell you to stop blowing. And I went, okay. That was weird. And then it still didn't work. What's that?
And you're getting lightheaded, like, can I stop?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, it was like 5 o'clock. I had worked all day. I just thought it was ridiculous. But he then took me back to the barracks and had me blow into the big machine until something registered, from the morning.
Wow.
Anyway. Wow. So Youngstown, we will have plenty of drunk people, I assume, because it is St. Patty's Day. So we got to be ready.
It is St. Patty's Day, absolutely. Right. And I hope, very quickly, I just want to say there is a code.
With the coffee. Okay, back to the coffee. Go ahead.
No, we'll just wrap it up because it really does help us a lot if you support the sponsors, and you get 10% off if you're a new customer, exclusively for our show. Just use the code in the description. I even have a comment on the tweet that went out with the code. So it's just their site /AUS to get 10% off. And it really does help.
Cool. That's cool. Okay. So how do they register? I don't know, register is the right word. How do you buy tickets for this meetup you got going on?
Okay. The Youngstown meetup, there are links in the descriptions wherever you are watching this. And essentially, if you're a locals member, and I highly recommend it, if you're a locals member, there is a discount
Okay.
$25 off.
How do they become a locals member? Because people ask me this all the time.
That's
I'm
true.
in this produce department at Albertsons. I don't know what to say. You got this thing figured out here where you go to unstructured.locals.com.
That's right. You
Right.
go
Okay,
there.
so you do that, and then what happens?
Then you'll be prompted to create an account if you don't already have one.
Right on.
You don't have to pay.
Okay.
They may ask you to pay, but you can say, just let me see it first, and
I like that.
and push through.
Right.
You also can get right to this show right now by clicking the link in the description.
Okay.
I have a link to it. There's a private chat. There are people in locals right now who are talking trash about us.
Whoa, that's dark.
Or nice things, depending.
Right.
You're usually kinder than Rumble.
Right.
Anyway,
Rumble's got anarchists over there. I don't know what's going on.
Rumble has
they're
a
gonna
Rumble.
burn the city to the ground.
It's like like
Rumble rant. Wait, what about subscribing to the show? I mean, it's stuck on 107,000 now for 10 years. I don't know how we get to 200,000 or if we're ever going to get there, but we need to bulk up the subscription numbers because I think, and this is just my crazy theory, that the bigger you are, the less you get bullied by YouTube, if that makes any sense, Eric.
Mm-hmm. Partly because you might be able to afford representation to challenge him.
Exactly. I don't think they're doing this to Russell Brand. I don't think they do this.
Well, they demonetize him. Bad example.
No, but I'm saying he is so big that he can absorb it.
Well, he can't, but they did remove all money from him. So it's like, that's a bad one.
Okay, thank you for helping me. That was
really well, I know, but I'm just saying.
I'm going to go home. I mean, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
I'm just trying to encourage.
I'm beating the chat, dude. The chat would be just laying into me. But yes, I agree.
I'm just trying to tell people to subscribe to the channel, but you have your own agenda, so I guess forget it. We'll move on to the next story. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Please
I have
do
to
subscribe.
ring this bell.
Does help.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's what we could use to help us, despite what Unley's saying. I don't know what that's about. But the reality of it is the meetup itself is our way to monetize and to get around this, as is the other forms of stuff with PayPal and Venmo and the Cash App that you could see down below that helps Eric and I, especially me and Eric, to get, in my case, to get books. By the way, I got that book in the mail today. You sent me from that guy.
Good.
Yeah. Which I will take a look at. It's a personal letter in there. I don't know if you read the letter.
No. It was sealed. I don't.
Oh, okay. I'll talk to you off camera about the letter. But anyway, it helps for the JFK Book Fund. We're going to do a show on Tuesday that I got a bunch of books for through the donations on the JFK Book Fund. It helps us and Eric with Venmo and PayPal and Cash App to get around this demonetization is all I wanted to say. So it really does. It really helps us a lot.
And super chats help. I mean, it all helps.
It all helps. It all helps to screw these commies and to go around these Marxist son of a bitches who are out to destroy us.
But as Mark said, the easiest thing of all, hit the like button.
Yeah,
subscribe.
Yeah. It really does help. It really does help. Now, okay, so I just want to get onto this RFK thing because he has Spears, who is his PR agent. Not to be confused with the campaign manager who worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. And when I explain this to people who are following him on Twitter, they don't know what to say. Apparently, they're under investigation now because the Federal Election Commission does not look lightly upon the campaign manager hiring their nanny for a lot of money to be their chiefs of staff. Again, these are women running these things who don't see any problems with cronyism, nepotism, and all the other tisms going out there. So they're now on investigation. 12 top campaign workers in the RFK camp have resigned in protest. They've issued letters. The letters went public. They describe a spring break party psycho atmosphere of the campaign, where these consultants are all pulling down $20,000 to $30,000 a month, feeding at the trough, going skiing in Switzerland, phoning it in with Zoom meetings. But RFK seems to be oblivious to this. And they announced yesterday that Eric and I had thought there was an announcement that they were going to take over the Libertarian Party. Okay, apparently that's not working. So now they're going back to their original plan, which is to create political parties state by state. This is another crazy plan to get on the ballot. So yesterday they announced that they created a We the People political party in the great state of Hawaii. So they're celebrating that they now have launched a political party. Is this an article about it there? This is Amaryllis Fox.
Yeah, this is her tweet and his tweet.
Right. So this is Amaryllis Fox issuing, as all campaign managers have never done in the history of politics, policy directives coming out of her office as the CIA agent that she was. I've never seen campaign managers issue policy directives, but she does this every single day on Twitter as if she's running as his vice president. He announced this week that he's thinking of Tulsi Gabbard as his vice presidential running mate. It might be Amaryllis Fox, it may be Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard now at CPAC.
She's at 2 shortlists then, because she's on Trump's shortlist.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Right.
Tulsi's getting around.
Right. She's also got a new book out, so the whole thing may be coming out of her camp, to promote this book, by the way, Eric. So the CPAC thing is timed with the release of a book. So there may be just some commercial interest involved in this thing. I mean, if I was Trump, I wouldn't even look at her. It would help RFK Jr. far more than it would help Donald Trump.
Well, I don't think he's going to have her. I think that was a smart move from Trump when she rattled off a bunch of names. He's like, yeah, they're all there.
Yeah.
I mean, his short list could be 200 people.
Yeah,
anybody.
But I'm saying that RFK Jr. put out her name this morning.
Oh, sure.
So there is that bouncing around the internet about her being his running mate, which would make more sense to me and would make Amaryllis Fox very upset, because I think that she would rather be vice president of the United States.
For sure.
Because this campaign thing, once it ends, she's either going to be head of the CIA, which is really nice for her, being formerly in the CIA, to be head of the CIA when he becomes president, as many of his supporters keep indicating to me is inevitable, with his 3% or 2% of the vote. If you look at some of the polling, despite their continuing to put out polls of his popularity, instead of the dude, they keep putting out these polls that he's at 34% approval in terms of being likable, and they go, look at this. He's passing by these guys who've actually done the job that people have a lot of negative feelings for. And he's at 34% of approval. Yeah, I know. So Barris just keeps putting out these disclaimers, which is great. Because this guy is going to end up with Cornel West numbers or Green Party Stein numbers eventually. But it's still fascinating to watch these maniacs go over a cliff trying to get on the ballot. Now, that being said.
Well, speaking of that, the new Unity Party, the other Democrat that nobody heard of, this running for Biden, like the guy is out there, is trying to get together with Nikki Haley so they could be like the losers Unity Party.
Well, Manchin abandoned his long-term run for presidency. He was in one day and he said he's not going to do it the next. So, I mean, Manchin and Sinema, interestingly enough, with this impeachment proceedings, may be loose cannons in terms of voting, non-democratic voting senators. In regards to impeachment.
Could be.
I don't think they can count on them, Eric.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling other Democrats could be that as well, and Biden will be getting the phone call. Mr. President, you've done your service.
Right, the wise men. Right, the wise men come in, and maybe the wise men might be someone like a Ben Rhodes, who comes in for Obama. Ben Rhodes, of course, famously. One of Obama's advisors, whose brother David Rhodes was the head of CBS News,
or vice versa, or I don't remember.
No, David Rhodes was the head of CBS News.
I can't remember if it was Ben or David.
Ben Rhodes was the advisor to Obama. Ben Rhodes, famously a dick, but I'm really interested in David Rhodes because what has happened with the situation here. With Herriage stuff being seized, the interestingly enough, SAG came out. I don't know if you saw this. The Screen Actors about Katherine Herriage. The Screen Actors Guild came out. Is this the article, Eric?
Well, there's multiple. We've got the uproar from SAG, and
that's what I want. The SAG article. I've never seen anything like this because they seem, as somebody pointed out to me, these groups that are coming out defending these people or these strange bedfellow stories seem to be happening in a bubble. I mean, because they will come out and defend some individual issue, but they never connect the dots to the bigger picture, Eric, if you know what I'm saying.
No, of course not.
Right. So it was shocking that SAG would come out and defend her because she's working on a story to take down Biden. But she's also withholding the names when she was at Fox of her sources, and may have to go to jail for withholding the names of her sources and when she was a Fox reporter.
Yeah, which is weird too. Remember the last person who pulled that was during Bush.
James Rosen.
Was
James
it
Rosen, yeah.
Was it
yeah
Rosen? Okay,
Rosen,
but there was also the CIA person or a reporter married to a CIA, and
there was Valerie Plame. Right?
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Valerie Plame was the Amaryllis Fox of her day, just so people want a comparison. But getting back to Ben Rhodes and David Rhodes, David Rhodes was famously the head of CBS News. And CBS not only fired Katherine Herriage, this black DEI woman who is completely a racist, is now the head of CBS News, not having the gravitas or the bona fides of a David Rhodes or a Ben Rhodes in terms of backgrounds in journalism and stuff like that. She has no background in anything. They put the DEI person at the head of CBS News, and she's been clashing with white women in the newsroom since she got in there. Okay, so Katherine Herriage, who was a huge Fox investigative reporter, got a big money offer from CBS about 5 years ago and went over to CBS. And people thought she was going to be marginalized, but CBS kind of let her do her thing until it got to the Bidens. So she was fired last week or 10 days ago. And what happened yesterday, the reason this story is now important, for the first time in American news history, CBS News has seized her computers, her files, and her records from her. This has never been her work product. And SAG came out in defense of her and the First Amendment and said this is a bridge too far. I don't know, the ACLU hasn't said a word about it, but really weird. That's what she's, if you're on TV, you're a SAG-AFTRA member, which is why they're doing this. But talking about strange bedfellows, I mean, what a weird story. But the weirdest part of the story is I went back to look at what happened to David Rhodes. Now, David Rhodes is an interesting cat because he's not at CBS anymore. Now, here's the thing. He is now the executive chairman of Sky freaking News, the head of Comcast, way above. Comcast is the largest American multinational media telecommunications conglomerate, Eric.
And they have NBC.
He is the executive chairman of Sky News. Now, where is that based? That is based in UK. And he is the guy that is making the UK relevant in terms of our foreign policy and propaganda. My peccadillo, and one of the things I'm obsessed about, is how the UK hooks us into all of their foreign policy stuff that they can't do themselves because they don't have the muscle. He is also the co-chairman of the National Security Action Group, which is a political NGO. And his partner, the other co-chair, is an obscure guy named Jake Sullivan, who happens to be the national security advisor to Joe Biden. This is who is working out of Britain, out of England, for Sky News as the chairman, determining what news is going to go out through Comcast, through NBC. That's all lower down. He's the chairman of the board, Eric, the brother of Ben Rhodes, David Rhodes.
Which, by the way, Murdoch used to own.
Right, but he doesn't own it anymore.
No, 2018.
Right. And that's when this guy moved into a position of power from CBS with his brother in his wings as Obama's guy. You want to know where power is? That's where the power is. That's why they're so confident about the media. That's why they're so cocky about getting away with murder, because they run the news, every single aspect of the news. The Comcast trickles down to NBC, trickles down to MSNBC, trickles all the way down from the top right there.
And if you want some previous history on that, read Cheryl Atkinson's first couple of books, because she got essentially screwed out of there. She left on her own accord but she talks about a lot of things like
Same thing happened to
Boeing,
Cheryl. Right. Yep. Cheryl
Boeing,
Atkinson. Yep.
and then her computers were hacked by
Yep.
intelligence potentially.
Yep.
So she's still out there. I really recommend people check out those books if you want to find out what life is like inside of CBS and the Rhodes.
Well, it's Black Rock. I mean, this is it's got a name for a reason. I mean, they put out lies 24/7. It is a lie machine that cranks out political lies. It's not just the political lies. It's what's his name? Michael Benz was talking about this yesterday. The Mike Benz, who I don't know if you know who he is. He's a kind of a cyber genius in terms of how these things work. Deep state cyber guy.
Mhm.
Anyway, the lie that's being put out is so big and so organized and so repetitive and timed, like with the death of Navalny. His wife was already being hooked up with Biden. They had talking points the second he was dead, because I think he was whacked. I don't think they had that stuff could not possibly be ready to go, just like the JFK assassination, just like with Oswald. They had these stories ready to go with the death of Navalny.
And 500 sanctions ready to go in one day.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's not even relevant. The point of the matter is they literally hit this guy in prison and knew the exact time of his death, which seems impossible based on how impenetrable that would be to the news media normally. Okay. So I believe, and this is just my opinion, that they offed this guy in the prison in northern Russia. For their own political purposes. Navalny, in case people are confused, was their Kalabi. He was their Zelensky. This was the same guy who they created, who they promised would be the president of Russia someday. He was the equivalent of a Lyndon LaRouche politically. Barnes did a great piece on him Sunday with Viva, talking about his whole background. This is a guy that they were creating to eventually replace Putin, which is never going to happen. He violated numerous laws. He had a bunch of sketchy things. He was a wannabe oligarch who was involved in bribery and a bunch of other illegal activities. Putin kept giving him suspended sentence after suspended sentence. And finally, after the coup attempts were revealed on video, Putin put him in jail for 4 years. And that's where he was whacked the other day. But they never said a word when Gonzalo Lira was killed in prison under the Ukrainian administration of Zelensky. There was no embracing of Gonzalo Lira's wife like Biden did with Navalny's wife. Gonzalo Lira was a resident of a place that I started this show with called Burbank, California. He was an American journalist. He died under Zelensky's administration in prison. Not a word out of the Biden White House. I mean, it really is outrageous, Eric.
Oh, totally agree.
But this lie that they crank out is so organized. When you begin to see the size of it coming out of Sky News, coming out of Comcast, coming out of these operations are so big that we don't have the ability to wrap our minds around how big this is, how organized this is. I mean, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually believe it, Eric, right?
Well, especially if the mainstream media is repeating. I mean, you've got a megaphone. So,
well, I might just say this. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and or military consequences of the lie. It becomes vitally important for the state to use all its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. Now, dig that, how contemporary that is today, based on what is going on. And that was said by Joseph Goebbels, of course.
I was going to say, was it Hitler or Goebbels? I couldn't remember.
No. That was written by Goebbels in his diaries and stated by Goebbels repeatedly. There's more to the statements, if you read Goebbels' diaries, on how to run news, because these cats went to school on this stuff. And the organization of it and the lying of it and the gaslighting is not by accident. I mean, this is super organized. This is coming straight out of Goebbels' playbook, and it is huge. Repeating the lie cements it. We have to cut the lie off at its knees when it first appears, the second it appears, because once it starts repeating, that's when it takes hold. So when you hear the lie the first time, that's when it's got to be undermined, not when it's the 500th time, as the Republicans and the populists and the Trump people try to do. Too late, in my opinion. It's got to be cut off at the knees the second you hear it, the second you're gaslit, the second it comes out of CBS News. It's got to be viciously counterattacked by hopefully Laura Trump if she gets to be the head of the RNC, which I don't know what the problem is and why she's not in there. Do you know anything about this?
Nope.
Okay, well, thanks for having us on. The situation is I'm just saying the situation's evolving. They're trying to get Laura Trump in to replace Yahoo McDaniel and
Romney's daughter. But yeah,
and they're trying to get her to replace him. It couldn't happen fast enough, in my opinion, because that's one strong, righteous woman. Now, that being said, apparently Jon Stewart has returned to The Daily Show, as you pointed out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in the first episode, it's only once a week, but his first episode, he tried to go after Biden and his age, and he was savagely attacked during the week, to where he returned this week, and his new target is Tucker Carlson. So apparently he got the message, but as I indicated a couple of weeks ago, Jimmy Kimmel got the message, Eric. And maybe you've heard something about Jimmy Kimmel.
Yep. He announced that this is probably his last contract.
Wait a minute. Somebody on this show said this was going to happen. And now there's going to be two more, because I saw, and as my prediction unfolds, all three will be gone. I saw Stephen Colbert this week, took off his glasses, looked into the camera and started screaming and yelling in a complete meltdown. I've never seen Johnny Carson do this. His days are number two, Colbert. So he's screaming into the night. He may return to The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and just be on Comedy Central, which I think is a Comcast channel owned by NBC, owned by Sky News, blah, blah, blah. Because I think the networks are going to be fed up with these people, and they're going to have to make some money at some point.
Fallon may squeak through. I don't know.
They're all gone. They're all gone.
Remember, Fallon got in a ton of shit, though, because he supposedly legitimized Trump, or because he messed with Trump's hair and he was nice to Trump, and they got so pissed off about him.
Too long, too late, too many. He's got to go. Now, what about this guy who was arrested for hacking in to Tucker Carlson's thing there, Eric? We were talking about that last night. The guy from Media Matters, Tim Burke, progressive journalist Tim Burke, was arrested, indicted, 14 federal crimes, including conspiracy charges for hacking Fox News and leaking the Tucker Carlson's videos, Eric.
There you go. The videos,
yeah, I mean, it's a great story. Yeah, I know. They weren't even that salacious, but it's good to see somebody get arrested for something. On the other side, Tucker calling Dominion's lawyer a slimy motherfucker and some other stuff. I don't know. Didn't seem that.
Well, he was also critical of Trump, and they leaked that out. So it's like a lot of it. And what was it? He was like making jokes in the middle of an episode because he was bored. I'm like, again, there was really a nothing burger when it came out. It really made no sense. But at least somebody got arrested. I mean, for this stuff, for hacking into it. Now, I don't know what happened yesterday with this outage from AT&T. Have you heard anything about? Supposedly a software update, which makes a lot of sense.
Oh, Hunley with a lot of sense on that thing. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying I've worked in IT. And I've had those days where you're doing an update and then it takes out like a central router.
Okay.
And then just fucks.
Well, maybe you can explain to us out here why Spectrum was out and the electricity in Hollywood, two separate events at the same time all day yesterday.
I don't know. I can't speak to that. But it depends. I can tell you ways that can happen.
We had a Spectrum outage. Spectrum is separate from AT&T. Spectrum internet television outage, and then the electricity was out in Hollywood itself and other areas in Southern California. Explain that, Hunley.
Depends. Are they interconnected? Okay. Are they tied to an internet backbone? Was that a router that went out?
Hold on, talk slower. I'm writing this down. Go ahead.
Anyway, there's a million things. Like I used to work for Nextel, which was a cell carrier.
Who?
It was called Nextel.
Okay.
They merged with Sprint back in the day.
Okay. All right.
But I worked in the NOC there. And
what's the NOC?
Network Operations Center.
Oh, anyway, I know this. I know what you're talking.
It would surprise you to realize that a lot of emergency services companies actually use Nextel cell phones. They're the little walkie-talkie phones way back in the day.
Oh, right.
But the emergency services people did that. So here we are. It was a carrier, and if you have a router out, it would literally knock out a town's ambulance services.
What?
And because of the radio. So there are a lot of interconnected things that can screw up, especially.
Well, how does the electricity go out in Hollywood?
Well, because if it's being controlled centrally and you shut down the communication, then it could shut it off because of overheating. I don't know. There's so much interconnecting that things can get screwed up, and a hack can come about and cause very serious critical harm.
I'm going to go with the Chinese on this one. I'm going to go with the Chinese.
Okay, well, the AT&T one was supposedly a software update that knocked them out for 10 hours.
How many times has this happened?
No, it happens all the time, dude. I mean, but
it's just the
scope. It's a matter of the scope. Normally, you just see it in a city or an area. But again, if it's a core router or a core switch, then that can be a
That's
nightmare.
absolutely fascinating. But what about this headline about Judge Angouan accused of banging a secretary that's breaking this story that you've heard about?
Mm-hmm.
Is he banging his secretary, and will he apparently not allow Trump to delay paying the $400 to $500 million fine, where the Attorney General of New York has vowed to seize his building physically?
Well, he's already said that he's not going to delay it,
Right.
Which is no surprise. They should just be going to a higher court already.
Okay.
Because again, it's property. So I don't see the damage in waiting for the appeal to come back, whether it's going to stand or not. Obviously, they want to seize the property as soon as they can and harm Trump. But
the $500 million gets frozen, so he's now out for use.
$500 million. Yeah.
$500 million is frozen, so he can't use that. He has other sources of money. Obviously, it's about 15 or 18% of his wealth or something. But the buildings, she physically wants to seize them as a scalp. And sure. The appeals process may take years, Eric, as you're well aware. They're not getting a ruling by the end of the week on this thing.
I agree. And they're trying to charge him interest of $72,000 a day.
That's what I was just going to say. Thank you. This is you're forgetting the $83 million ruling against him on the E.G. Carroll case. So these are starting to add up. I mean, these are frozen assets. I believe that their job is to take him down as an industrialist and a capitalist. I've said this on a couple of other shows, that I think their job is the state to physically seize the assets of one of the bigger capitalists in the East Coast and physically take his wealth and physically turn it over to the state. I think that's their goal. And
I'm sure it is. I don't think it's as easy as they think it is, because one, odds are extremely high that the building is not owned by Donald J. Trump. It's most likely owned by whatever the address is, LLC.
Right.
So they first have to pierce that corporate veil.
Right.
And that does take some time, because Trump doesn't own probably anything directly. It's probably, Shell Corporation, all over the place. That's a standard business. So they want to do it and they want to put pressure up. I don't know if they can. And I do think a lot of it is to keep the headlines coming. I mean, the headlines.
Okay. Well, I believe they will physically seize the buildings at gunpoint. Okay.
I'm sure they'll try.
I think they're physically going to take the buildings, and we'll see what happens. He owns about 30% of 40 Wall Street. Trump Tower, obviously, a much bigger stake in Trump Tower, bigger stakes in other buildings. The one he loves is that one downtown on Wall Street, personally, artistically. That's the one Letitia James really wants. Letitia James, obviously the illegitimate daughter of the famous blues artist Elmore James, who recorded Dust My Broom. Okay, so where do we want to go from here? We got this story here. What do you got?
Super chats.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's give the audience.
What you got to do? Yeah, go
Simon James is a new member. Thank you very much. And I see that Blitzen gave away 10 memberships to people, which is like a $50 purchase and always appreciated. Thank you. Dick Dickerson also gave away 10 AUS memberships. Another
Wow.
$50. So thank you very much. He's
Nancy
really
Dickerson's stepson,
possibly
the reporter that had sex with LBJ, former, I think it was Miss Wisconsin or something.
could be. Dustin Russell yawned this morning and got demonetized. Beam me up.
That's funny.
Kim Opperman, they hate Clarence Thomas because they hate black men that they cannot control or
Yeah.
black men.
Oh, thank
that's
you, Kim.
true.
That's a good analogy of it. Yeah, analysis of it.
Oh,
Very
for
true.
sure.
Very true.
That's why I love the Babylon Bee thing too, because
Well, that's why I
so
love
perfect.
the endorsement by the woman who got fired at the LA Times who came up with Larry Elder being the blackface of white supremacy.
Which,
Right.
by the way, Larry quotes it every.
Oh, no,
appearance.
it's a badge of honor. It's
He
a badge
loves
of
that.
honor for Larry.
Oh yeah, he's so great to listen to. I really enjoy Larry Elder's
Oh, no. If
interviews.
you live in LA, I mean, he's a sage of South Central. I mean, he's been on LA radio for 30 years, bro. He is a fixture out here. Just a fantastic radio show.
Yeah, he and Prager kind of
Yeah.
at the same time, right?
And also there's a guy, John Phillips, who's based out here, who's been on the radio a long time. Another great conservative voice people should look up. And I've been digging Rob Schmidt on Newsmax. I mean, Schmidt is killing it with Greg Kelly. I mean, these guys have been killing it on Newsmax every night. And I've been watching them every night religiously now.
Good. Hopefully it'll replace Fox.
George Erickson. It has for me.
These two are the best of the best. Well, thank you. Seawave Drive or Seawave Doctor. Mark should have done a Ken Burns segment on baseball. You guys are great. Is that any good, by the way?
The Ken Burns segment is great. I mean, you can't take anything away from with the baseball one. The jazz one's not so good, not as good as put it that way. But the baseball one is fantastic.
Civil War is fantastic.
The Civil War is fantastic, and the baseball one's fantastic. You can't get around it. It's great watching, especially in the early spring when you're just getting back into the game. It's broken down into eras and different subject matter. But it's definitely hypnotic. Definitely great to watch. But speaking of that, my film pick of the weekend is a Martin Scorsese film with Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Winona Ryder called Age of Innocence, based on the Edith Wharton book, 1993, 138 minutes. It is the Gilded Age in New York. It's about 30 years later than Gangs of New York, 20 to 30 years later. And it's still New York. And what Scorsese has done in his career is he's really shown the development of New York as a city, from Civil War time to modern day mean streets to the 70s with Taxi Driver and on into Goodfellas. And you see the city growing chronologically almost in his films. And this film is so beautiful. The production design, it's two Italians who did the costuming, and Fraschetti who did the production design, Dante out of Italy. But holy crap, I mean, really recommend. The women will love this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer and Winona Ryder. It's all about Victorian customs and restrictions, and it's very romantic, but it's beautifully shot. Absolutely beautifully shot. Highly recommend. The script written by Jay Cox, the journalist. And the other one I want to recommend is by a director named Julian Schnabel, who did the Diving Bell and the Butterfly. This is in French, so be aware. He's an American director. I won the directing award for this movie, but it's about a guy who is what's it called when you're paralyzed and you're locked in? You got that syndrome where you can't move anything and you can't move your mouth and you can't talk. Locked in syndrome, I think it's called. It's about the actual true story of the editor of Elle magazine in Paris who has a stroke, and we see his life unfold from being a stroke victim. We see his past life, how he got there. Absolutely riveting film in French. Those two picks of the week, I think you can't go wrong with those two films.
All right. Let me see. Nelson Joseph, when is the meetup in New York?
That ain't going to happen unless it's upstate New York. But we're talking about Florida, right? Afterwards, or
Yeah, we may be doing a VIP meetup in May in Florida. We will have to see Boca Raton area or West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, somewhere in that vicinity. We're focused so much on Youngstown, though. I want to make sure
Right.
Youngstown gets done and everything else. But the Florida one would be just a meetup, though, a VIP meetup. It would not be a show. So it would be, coming in, hanging out with us, whatever. And we'll see. Ike Broflovsky. New York Times covers the Google AI with black mid-century Germans. Real story is showing how AI will become expensive and inaccurate going forward. It already has been. I don't know. I don't think you follow it as much as I do, Mark, but
Well, I'm waiting for part 3 of the Oswald. I can't follow it because I'm stuck on part 2.
Okay.
Where are we doing part 3 now? Where are we with this AI?
Part 3 is underway.
Bravo. Way to go.
Anyway.
Way to go.
ChatGPT, as an example, has gotten progressively dumber. Like last summer, they showed how it was like a 92% accuracy,
right,
doing math, and then it like shrank down to like the low 30s or 40s. So it's getting progressively incorrect.
Just like the education of America.
Well, I think what's going on is you have assholes like you see at Google who are putting the thumb on the scale and they're feeding garbage in. That is going to cause actual factual problems and errors.
You say actual factual?
Actual factual, buddy.
Dude, you better stick with that because that's a great buzz phrase. I'm going to write that down and steal it. I won't use it in town, but
yeah. Anyway,
by the way, a shout out to Richard Lewis, who returned to Curb Your Enthusiasm for episode 3 this Sunday night with a brilliant battle rant with Larry David about leaving him money in his will to Larry David. Highly recommended, hysterical bit that Richard and Larry do. Which is kind of funny because Richard and I for years have had the same rant that he stole from me and him for the show, which is not the first time. Richard has asked me for many years to do the eulogy at his funeral. This is a very similar rant between him and Larry David. If you see the 3rd episode of Curb, this is the final season, by the way, of Curb. So HBO Sunday nights at 10 o'clock. Go on. Sorry, Eric.
All right. So I'm glad to hear that it's gotten better because it didn't start out too well.
No, Richard had a return for it to work because Richard doesn't care about the other. Richard's just pure comedy, pure humor. He doesn't give a shit about these political things. He's not a political person. So it's just pure comedy when it's him and Larry. But that being said, do you have any other super chats?
Yeah, I've got rant here. Tarkina 53. Just pointing out that the Dodgers bought the trans nuns to their game and crashed last season, and the Rangers are the only team to not have Pride Night and won the World Series.
Yeah, I'm not proud. I'm not proud of the management of the Dodgers. I didn't sign up to blow the management of the Dodgers. I mean, again, I dislike them. I'm for the team, the players. I mean, that's what I root for. I don't root for the president of the goddamn team. For Christ's sakes, we had Walter O'Malley taking him out of Brooklyn when breaking the hearts of an entire city. These are all scumbags. The famous line is, you got three guys in a room, Walter O'Malley, Hitler, and Stalin, but you only have 2 bullets. He says, who do you kill first? He says, you shoot O'Malley twice in the head, and that's the end of it. There's a lot of jokes about that going back to the 1950s. Wow. Yeah.
So who is more hated? He or the guy who took the Colts?
Oh, yeah, I think O'Malley. It's because it was New York and it was legendary. The hatred is just vicious. The Colt, what's his name? Jim Irsay, they did it in the middle of the night.
Right, out of Baltimore. That's why
that was really scurrilous. They fled under the cover of darkness, the Colts ownership. Yeah, the Dodger management believes that they all come out of the studio system. The PR people, they all come out of the Hollywood studio system. They're as woke as you could freaking get. And it's nobody likes it, including the players, but there's not much we can do about that because we're in the belly of the beast here. So that being said, root for the players, not the management. But look, George Steinbrenner was a convicted felon, and yet there were plenty of Yankee fans during the 70s and 80s when Steinbrenner kept bringing them to the World Series. He had been convicted of illegal campaign contributions and was a convicted felon, as Reggie Jackson pointed out. Anyway, the team is not the ownership in sports.
All right. Dick Dickerson said, Haley just said on X that she knows she will lose her home state, but she's staying in to drain money from Trump. What a witch.
It's amazing. She gets these talking points from the money people and just keeps doing their bidding. There is a special place in hell for this CUNT. I'll tell you that right now. Special place in hell for her.
I agree. Pasha, here's my chance to apply the confession through projection rule. The deep state says that Putin killed Navalny. That's how we know that the West did it.
Right. No, he's right.
Like the pipeline.
No, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. The same thing with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You know, the reason they didn't say anything about Gonzalo Lira is because Zelensky did kill Gonzalo Lira. So then there was nothing said about that.
Scott Bimbo, I guess, is correcting me. CIA Valerie's married to a Buckeye, Arizona guy, not Sean Penn. What?
No, I don't remember. Sean Penn plays her husband in the movie.
Oh, okay. Then maybe that's
I don't know what this is about, but Valerie playing in the movie. You're talking about the Sean Penn's character in the movie plays the government official who's married to her.
Okay, well that makes sense. I'm like, well, why am I don't remember.
I don't know what this has to do with anything.
Yeah, sorry, Scott. Dick Dickerson, the disruptions were caused by
I've heard that.
Solar flares, radar transmission still down in Asia.
That's why I was asking you, because I've heard that too, Eric.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are a real thing, solar flares.
I mean, hemorrhoids are like solar flares.
Oh, they flare, all right. They flare. Michael Banning, $20. Thank you very much. So that...
You know, you get these identification cards. I just want to point this out. This is the identification card you receive when you go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and each person receives this one. And as you go through the museum, you learn about one of the victims that you're following through in the Holocaust Museum in D.C., and you turn the page and you get the storyline as you go through the museum. This is Joseph von Happen-Walden, and he was born November 14th, 1930 in Paris, France. Joseph was the youngest of 3 children born to immigrant Jewish parents. His Polish-born father was a former officer in the Austro-Hungarian army who had met and married Joseph's Hungarian-born mother during World War I. Joseph was raised in a religious household and grew up speaking French. Then you turn the page when you get to the 3rd floor, and it says 1933 to 1939. My mother says it's better here in Paris than in the poor village where she grew up. Unlike my mother, who speaks broken French, my older sisters and I have grown up speaking French fluently. I attend a special public school funded by the Rothschild family, Eric. My father says that the terrible things happening to the Jews in Germany won't happen to us here. And then 1940 to 1944, I fled Paris, and I'm staying with the sister of a friend who is letting me hide on her farm in Sias in Western France. About a year ago, when I was 9, German troops occupied Paris. At first, I wasn't in danger. Unlike my foreign-born parents who were subject to being immediately deported, I was a French citizen. I fled Paris after the Germans deported my father in 1941. I have false papers. My new name is Georges Guérin. My sisters also have false identities and have gotten office jobs in nearby Al-Anon. Joseph's sisters in Al-Anon were discovered and arrested. Joseph managed to remain concealed until the end of the war and immigrated to the United States in 1949. So you get each one of these when you go to the Holocaust Museum in D.C., and you can fight back against Hamas and these pro-Palestinian forces by spreading the truth and never forgetting and never forgiving at what happened in the 30s and 40s in Europe, because it can happen again, and don't be fooled by this. Thanks.
All right. And while we're on depressing subjects and invasions, new report, there are now more Chinese. I love how they say migrants. It's not migrants, okay?
Why do they keep saying illegals?
It's like...
But they're not even illegals. These are military operatives. What are they coming here for? They're being sent by the Chinese government. They didn't walk from Beijing, for Christ's sakes. They're being dropped off by military ocean liners, ships off the coast of Panama, and going through this Darien Gap, through this base, this military base, which I am suggesting now is the Cuban Missile Crisis in waiting for the next American administration, because at certain points they're going to start to put in defensive weapons around that base if they haven't already, Eric. And as more focus by people like Ben Weinstein, Ben Weinstein, or Brett Weinstein. I'm sorry, Brett Weinstein begin to focus on this base, they will begin to militarize this base down in Panama. And what you're seeing here is a Cubanization of Panama. This is just my opinion. I think this is going to grow. I think the Chinese are going to push in as many military-age Chinese guys as they can into this base, and they're going to begin expanding it and militarizing it. And Panama is going to become a launching pad, a military launching pad for the Chinese Communist Party. Just saying it here first, folks.
And I think that the Brett Weinstein appearance, was it with Rogan or no? It was with Tucker. I think it's accelerating.
Yeah.
I think they're like, get in there now, get in there now, get in there now. We got to do it because, in my opinion, Biden's going to start cracking down the border, try to unring that bell a little bit and say, no, we fixed that. Really. As soon as you reelect me, then I'll open it.
He's just going to issue some statements between now and the election. Their game is to flood the zone. They don't give a shit. There are people behind him who just want to keep the door open as long as humanly possible, possibly till next January 20th. There'll be statements saying they're reducing it. Never going to happen. Just going to open that gate and keep it wide open as long as they can diminish the amount of white people in this country, white Christians. They're going to keep that door open. That is their bugaboo. That is what they hate. And these communists are going to decolorize, or in this case, colorize the United States and have a replacement game going on. There was a guy on the news asking these people online where they were going. They didn't even know where they were going. People from Cameroon, people from Nigeria, people from Kenya, people from China, people from all over the world were in Arizona, Eric. And they said, where are you heading? They didn't even have a place, saying, I'm going to see my aunt in Chicago. Right, yeah. Which is what happened during gangs in New York and other mass immigration.
They have sort of sponsors. I mean, not exactly, but it's kind of like that. They have family who's here or whatever.
But I'm saying these NGOs are pushing them through like an automat, just getting through, flooding in. You're going to get to New York, and eventually you're going to be living on the street, and eventually they're going to put you in a hotel. Eventually they're going to take over, which is what happened in Harlem. There was a condo development in Harlem, I think it was on 125th Street, a super upscale condo development that was built 11 years ago. It's empty. Nobody bought into it. It's internally beautiful. It's got an indoor swimming pool, marble hallways, really upscale condo development in Harlem. Nobody bought in. They didn't have the money, really super upscale. The company fled, went into bankruptcy, and the thing has been empty for 10 years. The mayor found out about it, backed a truck up last week and began unloading bunk beds. And people knew what was going on, immediately began to protest that this was going to be for the illegal migrants to live in, Eric. And the mayor went up there and they gave him a piece of their mind, saying, why should they be living in this luxury condo when we are living in working class housing right next door? And he backed off. He got scared, the mayor, and he pulled a plug on this thing, saying he's going to turn it into a community center or whatever the hell's going on. But they're running out of options. The city of San Diego, if you look at this headline coming out of the paper this morning, they've run out of money to deal with the migrants. The budget that they've had, there's no place to put them. They've had 140,000 migrants crossed into San Diego since October 1st, Eric. And everything is overflowed. They've used up all their funding. They don't know what to do. The past few months, we've had 100,000 migrants come across the San Diego border into the town. They had $3 million. They spent over $6 million. They're out of money. Now what? Now they're in the streets of San Diego. Now they're in the streets.
Well, you show me San Diego, I'll raise you San Francisco.
Oh, God.
Non-citizen Chinese immigrants sworn in on part of the election commission.
Let me tell you something. That story is so crazy. I will see you and raise you this article of the watchdog sues California County for refusing to release information on non-citizen voters. I see your article and I raise you this article. Do you want to go crazy? I will double your crazy, Hunley.
It's all in your state, dude. Own it. live in it,
Well, no,
enjoy
some
it.
of it's in New York with it, some of it's in New York, but there's other ones that are international now where Medvedev has said that if these planes begin to come into Ukraine, that could signal a nuclear response by the Russian Federation. If they begin to get flying F-16s, Medvedev has said this is going to be an act of war. So don't say we haven't been warned, Eric. Don't say we haven't been warned.
They've warned it for a while. I mean, I haven't
For a
heard
while,
from
but
Medvedev for a while.
well, but this is Orban now. Orban says almost nobody believes Ukraine will win this war. And he's right. Privately, they're telling Orban there is no one, even in the EU, who now believes or ever believed that Ukraine, who is a pawn in their game, could ever have possibly defeated, as many experts have said since the beginning.
What's their average troop age now? 42? Because they're out of people? No, I mean, I'm just saying it's horrible. And what I hate about it is these are actual Ukrainian people dying. Well, the longer it goes on, the more people die. And these are, civilians that are being screwed over by a government.
Well, it's a government supported by us. I mean, we're forcing them at gunpoint to do this,
or supporting the guy who's putting them at gunpoint to do it, who has property here that as soon as everything goes tits up, he'll be in Miami or wherever he's got his estates.
Well, I compare it to Navalny, and I compared it to some of these other puppets. It was also the guy. There was Kalabi, obviously, who we helicoptered in the Iraq situation. Kalabi was another Zelensky in waiting. But we also had a guy who, when we tried to overthrow Erdogan in Turkey, was living in the Poconos for many years. And we flew that cat in. He was some sort of Turkish religious figure who was going to be the Zelensky of Turkey. But that coup d'etat went tits up when Erdogan returned from vacation and got some tanks to roll in against U.S. coup forces in Turkey. And we had to fly the guy back to the Poconos. I remember that one. And people forget about that. There's a bunch of these Navalny's. There's been a bunch of these Kalabis. There's been a bunch of these Zelenskys. And this is all deep state neocon stuff that has got to end with Trump. And they couldn't do it under Trump because he wouldn't allow it. And that's one of the reasons he's so dangerous to them, is because they can't do this crap under his watch, which is really infuriating to them.
At least we got some bright news or fun news today, that Nathan Wade and Fannie Willis, things keep getting worse and worse and worse for them. And it looks like
right. I saw this morning. What do you make of this? Yeah, what do you make of this?
Essentially, they said we were not together before this point. Somebody got a subpoena in and got phone records showing them 35 times in the same location, because they pinged it off of towers and used geolocation. And it was like, yeah, you normally are staying in the same apartment from midnight to 4 a.m. That's perfectly normal really, hours, right?
It's really astounding. This new rise of black politicians who are corrupt are just not as good at it. They haven't done it as long as the white politicians have done it. And they get caught, and they're not good at doing this corrupt stuff.
Because they've never had to protect it. If you think
I'm saying they're too new at it. They're too new at doing this.
Well, but they've been enabled. They've been enabled too. It's like every time they pull something, they've been so patronized and so cared for and covered that they've never had to stand up on their own or be clever about anything. And so here we go. 35 times before the affair began. So now we're talking, both of them have testified on the stand. So we are looking at possible perjury.
Well, I don't know who's going to bring those charges against them, because she's the DA. I mean, who's going to prosecute her? Herself?
I don't know.
How does this work? I don't understand how this physically works. The judge was appointed or is in bed with her, right? This guy is a new judge. He's been a judge for 6 months. He's beholden.
Donated to the campaign.
Donated to the campaign. Under her. Worked under her. So does he do it? I mean, is she impeached by the people of Fulton County? That's highly doubtful. I don't know how any of this changes. Whatever they said in court, I do not think she's going to be removed. I don't think he's going to be removed. I don't think anything's going to happen here. I just think it's just going to be a slight embarrassment that the media is never going to cover again. They're going to avoid this like the plague. Now, that being said, there's a trial going on down at Santa Fe, Eric, from what I was watching this morning on Court TV.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about that? Yeah. Huh?
We probably should.
Okay. What's going on down there, Hunley? Because I'm watching this on Court TV.
All right. Well, yesterday, did you watch the opening statements?
Yes.
Okay. Prosecution sucked.
Okay.
I'll put it as bluntly as I can.
Okay.
They went totally into details, literally showing this is a blank on slides. So it's like, don't open a freaking opening statement with the PowerPoint. Just please don't. That's what they did.
All right.
Then Sleepy, give Sleepy Bowles some credit here.
Mm-hmm.
He came and, he spun a bunch of bullshit, but he at least told a pretty good story. He told a cohesive story about essentially how everything was a mess. It was all crazy. And he started to paint the picture that Seth Kenney and Sarah Zachary conspired together.
Who have immunity. Am I correct?
I don't know. They just
Zachary has cut a deal. Zachary's cut a deal. From what
I don't know if she cut a deal. She hasn't been charged.
Okay,
I know that Seth Kenney is never charged, and ironically, Hannah sued Seth Kenney civilly, and that suit has been dropped with prejudice by Hannah and them. So, if Seth is such a bad, evil, nasty guy, why did you drop the civil suit? That's
all I know is that Zachary is cooperating with the prosecution.
It
might not be a deal, but it may be cooperation.
And Seth is completely cooperating. Well, they literally called him a government agent. He's been, cooperating, but that's Bowles' defense.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, that's been his defense. So then the first witnesses, I didn't get to see all of them. I hung out with Legal Bites a bit watching. Bowles is doing a pretty good job.
Right.
His partner came up and was doing a cross-examination on the lieutenant. And the cops...
I saw that. Yeah.
Cops didn't do such a great job here. I mean, this lieutenant, sent somebody else to pick up the prop cart that had the gun on it and everything. Instead of himself, he sent just a person on the crew to go get it.
Interesting.
And he admitted in court that he should have done it himself.
Interesting.
Then literally on his body cam, you could see the crew member reach down to the cart over the evidence tape, pick up a dummy and shake it and put it back down. And they're like, should he be handling evidence on that cart? So it's like the lieutenant's camera and there's another cop standing there. So I'm like, okay, this is not going well.
There's enough meat and potatoes for Bowles to make a defensive case for sure, Eric, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that he can throw a lot of confusion. Last week, he did win the OSHA, so he got to bring in the OSHA report and the inspectors. So that is going to be incredibly helpful because, I mean, look, Hannah bears some responsibility. I'm sorry.
Absolutely,
she does.
Absolutely.
But she's not alone. And
that's right.
And finally, a lot of the lawyers and people are asking the questions that we've been asking.
Right.
Where's Gabby Pickle?
Why she's on the witness list. She's on the witness list.
Of course she is, but why was she never charged?
No, I said that from day one. Of course. I was on Pickle from the beginning.
Yes. And then another guy that I've been on forever now is Joel Souza. He's the director. Just because he got shot doesn't mean he's not responsible. Randall Miller took a fall. How did he just squeak on by?
The lighting guy is going to testify too. The guy who
he was there. I mean,
who complained about the incredibly bad hotels.
Lane Looper. Yeah, sorry.
Lane Looper's testifying.
I thought you were talking about the lighting guy who
held her. That's Zvi.
Serge,
from who was Russian. Again, it's interesting that her parents are not there. It's interesting that her husband's not there. It's interesting that Baldwin's not there.
Well, Baldwin can't be there, really. I don't think.
Well, I'm just saying it's interesting who's not there. He's next. He's next.
Oh, no, he is. But I mean, really, there's one, he can watch it. So I'm sure that he and his team are watching it, but
Oh, are you kidding? Of course. Of
yeah,
course.
but what are they going to do? He would just be fifth.
Well,
I
my
plead the
favorite
fifth. I
thing
plead
was
the fifth. And, yeah,
the prosecution going after her name. That was the craziest thing of the week.
oh, and it's still going on because her name, I get illegally, is Hannah Marie Gutierrez.
Right.
Apparently,
Right.
the Reed was put on to put her in with Thel Reed and to
Right.
use the identity.
Right.
There's no biological
Well,
tie there. He's the stepfather.
Right, but he has raised her with Gutierrez.
Yes, he's been in and out of there for sure.
But the mother disappeared.
Right.
Gutierrez is the one who disappeared, not him, not Thel.
No. Thel's had a hard life. I mean, it's a hard life family all around. But Bowles, no matter what, says Mrs. Reed. He's hammering Reed, and it is amusing. But yeah, in one of the filings, Carrie got pissed off, and she's like, "Her name is Gutierrez, and not Reed." But that should be
well. I mean, she is her father's daughter. I mean, he taught her. A friend of mine was telling me he was on a set with her a couple of years before this, and she was working with her dad even before the 3 years ago. She took the Reed name as a hyphen, but she was with her dad on sets even before that, Eric, learning the trade. According to people I know who worked with her on, or worked with the dad rather, in cowboy pictures and gun pictures. The daughter was always there as his assistant, uncredited.
Well, and she was being groomed to take over because his age is in very poor health.
Right.
And
he's also
really
he's a total alcoholic and completely a drunk. And who knows, that's genetics or whatever with her. He is her stepfather. So who knows?
Her brother,
I mean, she loved to party.
His son.
Right.
There's.
Like look what happened. Her boyfriend died in a drunken motorcycle crash.
Well, and by the way, they were just releasing evidence of the night before when she was talking about going down and getting blasted. There's like, you getting high yet? Yeah. I mean, in text, it's literally she's saying that. I'm like, oh my God.
There's two things I could say about that. One is her age, and two, that's common for film sets. I'll just put that out there.
That's true. It is sad to see, though. I feel like she has gone off the rail or went off the rails.
She looked very good yesterday. She looked great.
Oh no, they've done a good job on the presentation.
She looks great. Yeah,
she looks more professional than the lawyer next to her.
Absolutely.
Which I actually thought was maybe smart because
it's hard not to root for her. It's hard not to root for her because I'd hate to see this entire thing hung around this 20-something's neck. And let everybody else get off the hook. I mean, it's hard not to root for her, Eric.
But then at the same time, it's like, it would be ironic if the only person who got convicted in any way is Dave Halls.
That would be incredibly harsh also. Yeah, I mean.
Because he's the only one who showed responsibility.
I know,
Remember
I know. Well, he's a MAGA dude, bro. He is, he's a MAGA. The photograph of her with the live rounds in her lap was devastating. That photo is just devastating. Within the case itself, there was a live 1 or 2 rounds, right?
There was that. There was another one in Baldwin's gun belt, but another piece of devastating testimony I thought was they were asking the evidence tech about a lever action rifle, and they said. Okay, you said that the police made these weapons safe. Did they make that one safe? And she said no. It was severely jammed, and they had to take it into headquarters to have the firearms techs pry it apart. And she goes, "Oh, okay." And she was like, "What's up with this bullet?" As part of the testimony, and it was scratched up and everything. It was a 44 rifle, and she loaded a 45 in it. So I'm just saying that does not bode well. And then they're showing the boxes that are like mixed up with 38 and 44. And I'm like,
again, Bowles is going to have the opportunity to cross-examine Sarah Zachary and find out why she was put into the props department and given double duty, which I said at the time was devastating to her safety record.
Well, that's Pickle.
Pickle or Sarah, who's ever somebody's got to take it, Eric. Right.
Well, that's Pickle though. I'm just saying Pickle made the budgeting and said, you do this. So that's
right. But I'm saying when she's out there shopping for chandeliers and lamps in town when she should be doing gun training.
Rolling.
I mean, that is What's that?
And rolling cigarettes.
Right, but I'm saying that's the essence of the case for Bowles. I mean, if he can put Pickle on the stand and say, you undermine the safety of this film by insisting she work in the props department under Sarah Zachary and go shopping for props when she should have been training Baldwin on gun safety, that's a powerful testimony if he can extract that from her, Eric.
And apparently there's another email that Gabby sent saying there will be no more training days or something like that. So there's a lot
Gabby
going
meaning Gabrielle Pickle you're referring to.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry, just for the people who haven't followed.
But yes, so there's a lot going on. Obviously, we're going to stay tuned. I don't know.
We're going to stay on this until the whole freaking thing is over, because we started this channel with that, didn't we, Eric?
It happened the day before we started it. Before this was built. Yes. Literally.
Oh my God. Wow. How long has this taken to get to trial now?
October 21st, 2021. So 2.5 years. Almost.
Lord. Dear Lord. Wow. You talk about slow justice. I mean, what a mess. Anyway, who's ever you're rooting for, the fact that it's taken 2.5 years is a karmic joke. Because this says negligent homicide written all over it. I mean, this is not the Kennedy assassination with bullet angles.
But there was negligence and screw ups everywhere. The cops,
right, but I'm saying basically, it's a negligent homicide case, right? Okay, this should not take 2.5 years.
No,
I mean, the film itself was finished and reshot. Now the victim's husband is the producer of the goddamn film. How do you explain that one?
He got his Hollywood moment.
The victim's husband is now the producer of Rust, people, which has gone out to sales, which is what happens with a finished product. It's going to go on the festival route and try to find sales through a sales force that you hire to peddle these films. They've all moved on to other projects. Sousa has moved on to other projects, and so obviously is Baldwin. But the film will be sold to some company that will promote it and put it on somewhere. There's too many platforms for it not to be released as a regular film. Even without any hoopla, it's going to go somewhere into the streaming universe, I predict, because it's a film that's cheap enough to buy, made for a price with a star attached. There's no way it cannot be sold. It will be sold. It will be released. That being said, part of the settlement of the Hutchins-Baldwin war was that he ended up as an executive producer on the film.
Yep.
Am I remembering this correctly?
No. Yeah, he did. That was part of the settlement. And that it would be finished. Yep.
Yeah. And he's an executive producer of the film. And what that means in terms of revenue stream is internal. I don't know. But yeah, you talk about strange bedfellows. How about that? The producer is now a producer with you on the film that you killed his wife. Okay, just think about that.
Yeah, and a rumor got back to me that it had to be finished for the husband.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it was not necessarily like they were saying, "Oh my God, we want this film." It was, let's just say,
that was part
I want
of the
to
deal.
be an executive producer. Damn it. I want this movie. And
they had to do some script rewrites. They had to do some recasting. They had to do find another location out here in the desert by me. There was a lot of moves that had to be done when easily they could have cut their losses and walked away. They didn't need this $5 million film. At least Baldwin didn't, for his career.
Oh, no. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of money came out of Baldwin's pocket in addition to what was, the film being done. So
look, at the end of the day, the maximum penalty anybody is looking at is 18 months in jail. Right?
Actually, that's not true, because the evidence tampering charge on her
you're right.
And that's the biggest irony, by the way, because she's also under charges for brandishing a gun in a bar that took place a couple of weeks, I guess, before.
That has nothing to do with this, does it? I mean,
no. But I'm going to point out irony, because she is the maximum sentence for the negligent homicide is 18 months.
Right.
The minimum sentence for brandishing a gun in a bar is 18 months.
Bizarre.
So one killed somebody. The other one is being an idiot. And go figure. And then the evidence tampering, which I still argue should not have gone through. That did not make sense to me because I don't think they showed an actual nexus of her doing the drugs and handling the ammo. If they found it on her on the set, okay. If they found it in her system, okay. But they did not prove that.
That's insane. That's insane. That dog's not going to hunt. I mean, handing off a bag of Coke to someone while you're being searched. Hey, I've done that. And I didn't murder anybody. I mean, if police are about to search you for something, it's, you know, you just want to clear the stuff away, the contraband. It doesn't mean she was high while she was on the set or it's involved in a negligence, or even if it is, you got to prove that. You got to have a blood test or something. You can't just say she had some Coke on her, which may have been from the night before in her wallet in a small gram little snow seal for people who know what I'm talking about. And she handed it off to somebody else so it wouldn't be turned over to enemy hands. That's not the same as being high and negligent or drunk driving.
And she was questioned in the police station. I know. They had every opportunity to test her, do a blood test, to do a urine test, breath.
Why didn't they do it?
No,
I don't understand why.
Because obviously she wasn't registering to them enough for them to say. She must have seemed sober. So if they didn't see it at the time to bother
why wouldn't
testing,
they do it to Baldwin? I don't understand. He's the shooter.
I don't know if they did with him
What's
or not.
Your
They just
opinion?
pushed him.
I mean, why do you think they wouldn't test the shooter in the case?
I think due to the circumstances.
He's a former alcoholic who's got a long history of drug abuse. No, I'm being serious. I mean, look,
I know, but I'm just saying because of the very specific circumstances of it being on set and everything. I think
it's murder anywhere it's on set or not. I mean, you got to test the guy. I mean, what if the guy was doing a stunt driving thing and he crashed into everyone on this? You're telling me they wouldn't test his blood for a drunk driving a stunt drive? Of course they would.
That's possible. And again, I don't know if they didn't, but I don't know.
Good point. Good point.
So
good point. And we still don't know if there's any B-roll footage of the shooting.
Yeah, from what I've been told, no. But
I know it.
Again, I'm just
we don't know. We don't know. There might be some footage of that rehearsal, and we don't know what's on that camera.
It's true, but we will keep following it. I don't know. We may do a bonus episode covering it. I don't know if there's more stuff coming in.
We may have to break into people's lives if there's some breaking news. But I'll tell you this: we have some good news. Okay, so it's not all bad news. We got this story yesterday. Touchdown. I want to give you this touchdown story for Odysseus that crashed. The craft landed on the south pole of the moon, the first U.S. expedition since 1972. This is I know you didn't see this story, Hunley. We have landed on the moon, Eric. I just want to leave with this upcoming manned mission, which is unmanned right here. Odysseus or Odie. Touchdown on the south pole of the moon, first U.S. expedition since 1972, Eric, as it prepares to drill for water in an upcoming manned mission. So this story breaking last night, it's $118 million. Sounds pretty cheap.
How are they flying up there? Are they doing rockets? Because they retired the space shuttle. Are they using Elon in them?
I'm going to tell you right now. The $118 million unmanned Odysseus, or Odie, is a six-legged robot lander touchdown at a crater called Malapert A near the moon's south pole, having slowed down from 6,500, 4,000 miles per hour. Houston, Odysseus has found its new home, said mission director Tim Kaine shortly after the confirmation. I know this is a nail biter, but we are now on the surface. We are transmitting, said Intuitive Machines CEO Steve Altemus. Welcome to the moon. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said in a video, congratulations. I think Bill Nelson was a senator, wasn't he? At one point out of Florida or something?
Sounds right.
We've taken the moon. America successfully returned to the moon Thursday, marking the first time a craft touched down on the lunar surface since the last Apollo mission in 1972. This is a NASA program. It's not independent. It's not private. It is the American Associated Space Administration. We're back on the moon, and it is an upbeat story for what it's worth.
Well, perfect. That's a good place to leave because I don't want to talk about Iran in the South.
No. That's why I'm talking about it. This is a good upbeat American story of landing on the moon in a mission to drill for water. I don't know if there's water on the moon, but apparently it's drill baby drill on the moon, but not here. So we're going to be drilling on the moon, but nothing in the North American sphere of influence. So you look up at the moon tonight, it's almost full. And maybe if you took out your telescope, you might be able to see this little six-legged creature on the south pole of the moon. I don't know which way the moon is facing, but people at home can figure that out for themselves. But yeah, we're back on the moon, people. And with that note, we may have some other information if we go over to locals about some of these stories.
We may, unfortunately, somebody had to ruin the happy moment here. Sorry, Kim. I hear the rumbling of civil war and militant foreign occupation, regardless if Mr. T gets in or if he doesn't. I fear for our children.
Well, that was upbeat. I'm trying to end with an upbeat. What are you doing, Eric?
Okay,
do you know what performing?
Heading to locals with us. So we are heading to locals. It's going to be upbeat. Never mind the last super chat.
Oh,
we will see you locals.
You are a real cum buster.
You want me to do?